Are they, is Rachel here? Rachel?
Yes, I think we're on.
Okay, yeah. I'll just go back.
I'm typing. Yeah, just let me know. Just figure it out. I should be creative for It's 30 seconds.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jean Shaheen. I am honored to be co-leading this bicameral congressional delegation with Jim Risch, my colleague from Idaho. Jim and I think this is our third year to lead the bipartisan delegation. We think it's very important to be here in Halifax to share the commitment of the United States Congress for the discussions here in Halifax, which bring together democracy representatives from all around the world to talk about how we can work together. This year, obviously, support for Ukraine has been the hot topic on the agenda, and I think it's important for us to reaffirm our commitment to make sure that we provide legislation in the Congress that provides aid to Ukraine, to Israel, on the Indo-Pacific, and hopefully on the border. So we have a lot of work to do, but we have already started working on this package. We will continue that when we get back. And I think it's, again, important that we reassure our allies around the world that this is a commitment that we have in the United States. So with that, let me turn it over to Senator Risch, and each of us will comment briefly, and then we will open it up for questions. Jim.
Well, thank you very much, Jean. And I am happy to be here with Jean, with this whole delegation, which, as you can see, is bicameral and importantly bipartisan. The theme here this year was support for Ukraine, and obviously that was at the forefront of the meetings that we had, the presentations that were made, and obviously a lot of the private discussions. Obviously, after October 7th, long after the agenda was set for this, we had the attack on Israel. So there obviously have been conversations about that too. This conference is always an excellent opportunity to get together with like-minded people from countries that are freedom-loving, that are democracies, and that pull the wagon together with us, and which are allies of ours. As always, we have some differences. That happens whether it's allies or with family families or anything else. The fact that you have differences isn't important. What is important is how you settle those differences. And we had some good discussions in that regard on some ideas that we had different directions on, but I can tell you that by and large, it was a very harmonious meeting. So with that, Senator Coons.
Well, thank you, Senator Shaheen, Senator Risch, for leading this delegation. I'd like to thank our very talented ambassador to Canada, David Cohen, who's also been a key part of our very positive experience here. I chair the subcommittee on appropriations that funds our State Department and USAID, and so it was principally focused on the humanitarian portion of the supplemental, but across a whole range of engagements with defense leaders from close allies, elected members of parliament, legislators from close partners and allies, and advocates for freedom from countries like Venezuela or Iran or Russia, where the countries are not close partners or allies, but the people of those nations continue to seek a path forward towards freedom. I was reminded at every turn of the central role that Senator John McCain played in helping found this, and it was wonderful to share a panel with Cindy McCain, now Director of the World Food Program, and someone who's been a central part of the many times I've been able to come as well. We look forward to your questions. This is a tremendous conference, a great opportunity to engage around the values that bring together our partners and allies and the very real challenges that await us upon our return to Washington, and that are challenges for all of us in the days ahead. It is better when facing those challenges to have close and trusted partners and allies like Canada. In some of the conversations with our Canadian friends and partners, we've also worked through operational challenges and priorities, and in some of the conversations about NATO and our security partnership, there's been a lot of questions about where the United States will stand, and I've been encouraged at how strongly all of us support moving forward with making sure that Ukraine has the resources they need to win. With that, I turn it over to Senator Mike Rounds.
Thanks, Chris. Look, first of all, Halifax does a great job in hosting this every year. And one of the opportunities that we have are the plenary sessions where we get together as a group and look at unique things that are current in nature. But the second piece that I think is so important are the bilaterals, the opportunity for us literally just to sit down and to visit with our counterparts from our allies. And that type of a discussion shows that we've got a whole lot more in common than we'll ever disagree on. Funding, naturally, is something that we all struggle to meet, the new technologies and what it means. And then once again, the current events that, as my counterparts here have all said in this very bipartisan group, we want to get to the point where we are funding Ukraine, funding Israel, funding the challenges in the Western Pacific, but then also recognizing that in our own country, we've got real challenges on our southern border that have to be addressed. Once again, our allies, they're curious about how we're doing it, but that support and that sense that we're in this together, that's something that gets reinforced when we come up here to this particular conference. And it's one that we appreciate, and once again, we look forward to every single year. This time, I'll turn it over to Senator Welch.
Thank you very much. Senator Shaheen likes to brag about New Hampshire lobster, but we had a pretty good lobster the other night, I'd say.
Well, they were immigrants from New Hampshire.
That's her story, and we're backing her, all right? Just one thing. This is my first conference at the here in Halifax, and it's been, for me, very valuable. Two reasons. One, this challenge that Ukraine faces and the challenge we face to maintain our support through thick and thin is something that is front and center here. And having folks get together who have that commitment, who then go back to their respective legislatures and have folks who then, because like Jean, you've been here 14 years, I think, you speak with a much more powerful, informed, incredible voice. And I know that's true with you, Senator Risch, on your side as well. So there's a real benefit for those of us who are here, united in our commitment to stay in the course with Ukraine, to be here to have discussions with our colleagues about what the current challenges are, both political and militarily and act and go back to our respective bodies and then advocate and give a path forward. So to be part of this and to maintain that commitment that my colleagues here have been leaders on is a great opportunity for me as a new member of the Senate. And now my old friend from the House of Representatives, Jason Crow. Good to have you.
Thanks, Peter. Jason Crow from Colorado. I'm representing both the great state of Colorado and the People's House in this delegation in here tonight. I want to thank Senators Shaheen and Risch for, once again, your incredible leadership for putting this delegation together in a bipartisan and bicameral way to send a very strong signal that America stands firm, we are resilient, and we are with our partners and allies. And I want to thank our Canadian brothers and sisters for once again doing an exemplary job of hosting this conference and rolling out the red carpet for us. Their hospitality is always incredible. Talking with our Ukrainians, our partners, and our allies the last couple of days, it's very clear two things to me. The first is that our alliance remains very strong. The debates that we have, the challenges that we are facing, the procedural hurdles that many times we are trying to overcome are actually signs of our resilience and our strength as democracies. And there's a resilience in our systems that our adversaries lack. And the second is that folks still look towards America for leadership. They look for us to be resilient, focused, and strong. And we are here to send that message that we are prepared once again to stand up and to meet the moment and to meet the very many challenges that we face and to get the job done. So thank you.
Good job.
Go ahead.
Mics on the left and right. Please state your name and outlet. One question, one follow-up, please.
So, two questions.
Two questions.
Hi, Senators. Oh, is this on? Hello? Hi, Senators. Thanks for being here. I'm wondering the extent to which you guys talked about the 2% threshold for the defense budget for NATO. I know you met with the Canadian Defense Minister earlier, Senator Shaheen and Senator Risch. I know you guys have talked about this a lot back home in Congress and the need to get our NATO allies on board with that approach. Can you talk a little bit about how that went at this conference?
Yes, and in fact, we did talk about that, as well as the recent report that just came out about Canada's defense industry and the need to continue to invest. We pointed out that we view Canada as a neighbor, a trusted partner, a friend, and we share many security challenges through NORAD. It's, as we saw with the Chinese spy balloon, there is an early warning system in Canada, and so it's very important that we work together to be as strong as possible. And Jim, you may want to address the 2% in addition. That did come up, and we raised the concern that it's a commitment, as the defense minister said to us, that Canada made in Vilnius that they are going to work hard to address.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the 2% issue is an issue that we always discuss with our allies. This is nothing new to us. We know how to argue it pretty well since we deal with our European friends all the time. There's 31 of us in NATO, going to be 32 hopefully next week, maybe the week after. But we all committed to spend 2%. I think everyone is aware of that. Everyone has financial problems. All the parliaments and legislatures that deal with this all have to deal with their constituents that elect them. And so it's a balancing act, but it is important that everybody keep the commitment that they made. NATO is strong. I can report to you it's stronger than I've ever seen it. It's growing. It was a huge mistake that Putin made when he thought he was going to split us when he invaded Ukraine. But NATO is strong, but its strength needs all of us pulling together to meet the commitments that we've made.
Thank you.
Justin Ling, freelance. I'm wondering if you can tell me if you can identify any sort of technologies or innovations that have not been provided to Ukraine yet that could still be sent, could still be developed, that could fundamentally end the the positional warfare we're seeing. We're not a stalemate, but we'll call it positional warfare. General Zaluzhny has been talking about electronic warfare, about some sort of anti-drone technology that could provide air superiority, anti-mine. Do you think America, NATO, the EU, Canada could provide some of that technology that could help unlock that conflict?
I think when you ask the question in terms of new technology, let me broaden it just a little bit. The question is are we providing the appropriate types of technologies that they need, including the weapon systems? And we're probably not going as fast as a lot of us would like. In some cases, it's more challenging to do. In some cases, since you're bringing in and you're training individuals on systems that they've not used before, it means you train them, you've got to train them before you can send the stuff over. Some cases, what we found is that, such as with our M1A1 Abrams, the tanks that we sent over, it took longer than what many of us wanted it to. They're there now, they're in theater. You want to have the weapon systems that go with it as well. You've got to have the 155s as well. And so now it's not just a matter of providing some of the new technologies, it's a matter of making sure that they actually have the other resources that they need to make it through the wintertime. So it's a bigger problem than just the new technologies. I also have to give Ukraine a huge amount of credit. They have been innovators. They have taken the tools that we've been able to get to them, and they have innovated with those tools and made them work for them. When we talk about electronic warfare, there's clear evidence that they were able to bust through some of the Russian capabilities for defending their air defense systems, got in and took them out early on. That's not something that you can necessarily train somebody to do. It's something that they had trained, and they figured it out how to do it. Artificial intelligence is going to be an item which is on the battlefield today. It started years ago, but the best place was it. The Nagorno-Karabakh War showed everybody what could have happened 2 years, in September of 2021. Clearly, the Ukrainians learned from that experience. They've innovated it. Drones right now coming through, they can't get enough drones. So the more drones that we can get into them, the better off we are. A whole series, but it's not just the new technologies. It's a whole series of technologies that Ukraine continues to need. And part of what it is we need ourselves and our allies to continue that flow. We've got a challenge just in terms of delivering the resources through a supply chain that has been challenging, but we're coming up to speed. And as we come up to speed, I think those resources are going to be here a little bit quicker than what they have been in the past. I'll just say this as well. The aircraft, it sounded really good early on to send over the F-16s. It wouldn't have done us any good to have them until these guys get a chance to train on them. And at the time when they first requested it, it wasn't going to happen. It will now because they've been trained. Would it have been great if we could have had them trained already as a part of the mission to begin with? Yes. But since we couldn't do it for them then, now is the next best time. It's coming on board. Mr. Putin is going to find out that there's a whole lot of weapon systems coming on board that he is not going to be able to respond to, and it's going to give Ukraine the opportunity to continue to advance and take back the land that is theirs.
Okay, I'm gonna fix this because Andrew's much taller than me. Senators, Congressman, thank you for being here. I wanted to ask a question about Israel. Two questions, really. Given the fact that 11,000 people have now died in Gaza, it seems like, is it time for the administration to be more transparent about the weapons that it is sending to Israel? And then secondly, is it time to potentially put conditions on the aid that the U.S. is sending to Israel?
I'll take a run at that.
Okay.
I guess I don't know what you're referring to as far as transparent about the weaponry. We are very transparent about what we've sent to Israel, always have been, always will be. This is the war. This is not our war. It's Israel's war. They were attacked on October 7th. If you haven't seen the video, you that are in the media have a duty to look at the footage that was captured from the cameras that the invaders wore on October 7th, that Hamas was wearing. that will tell you why Israel is doing what it's doing. It is in a place that is really existential for them. They have made the decision, just as we in World War II said, we are going to eliminate the Nazis as a military force, as a cultural force, as a political force, and they have made that same decision right now. War is difficult. There always are casualties that amongst the civilian population. Every civilian that dies in this has died at the hands of Hamas. They hide behind women and children. They put their weaponry behind women and children, and it is a war crime, and that number is running up because of Hamas. They have within their hands the power to stop the shooting immediately. Turn over the hostages that they're holding, lay down their weapons and surrender. This thing's over.
Sorry, just to follow up, though, on the transparency of the weapons, there has not been a list put out to the public on exactly what the U.S. is sending to Israel.
I think you can get most of that online. The biggest thing we've done is the Iron Dome, and we're going to continue to reinforce the Iron Dome.
Thomas Stamina, the Kyiv Independent from Ukraine. First of all, thank you for your support for my war-torn country. And second, there have been a lot of discussions at this forum regarding the many challenges that my country is currently facing. But I think there's one elephant in the room that we haven't really talked about, and the elephant's name is Donald Trump, who is currently the front runner of the upcoming presidential election. And my question to you is, do you have a plan on how to ensure a steady flow of aid to Ukraine in case Donald Trump wins the next election?
Okay. Who's the lucky dog that answered that?
Look,
I nominate Jean. Everybody for that?
Look, I think we're focused right now on trying to get this supplemental aid package through. It's a long time from now until the election, and I think our goal is to make sure that Ukraine gets the aid that it needs now, so it can get through the winter and continue to fight this unprovoked war against Russia.
That's right. That's good.
Hi, Ashley Roki with Breaking Defense. I want to follow up on Laura's question.
Can you come a little closer,
Sorry.
please?
Better? Ashley Roki with Breaking Defense, and I want to follow up with Laura's question. The Pentagon is not transparent on what weapons they're providing. They acknowledged they're not detailing it at. But is it time to begin end-use monitoring of the weapons that the U.S. is providing, and or put similar constraints that the U.S. has placed on Ukraine and how they use their weapons that are being provided?
Want me to hammer that again?
Well,
You know,
I can tell you'd like me to do that.
It's your turn.
Look, there's
Subcommittee Appropriations Chair, so.
Look, there are conversations about restrictions on humanitarian aid going into Gaza to ensure that it's tracked, that it's monitored, that there's guardrails, that there's no diversion. There are statutory obligations for how we disperse humanitarian assistance. There are also statutory requirements about purposes to which weapons that we transfer to allies and partners. And my hunch is that you'll see more reporting and more expectation of clarity about exactly how humanitarian relief is being delivered. And there are conversations about balancing that with military aid reporting. Restricting and directing the conduct of the war, I do not think you'll see in statute by Congress, but that's just my opinion. I do think our president, who immediately after the October 7th horrific terrorist attack by Hamas went to Israel, made it clear that we have Israel's back, has deployed 2 aircraft carrier battle groups to the region to deter Iranian further aggression, but has from day one also said, we expect you to conduct your wholly justified campaign against Hamas, a campaign of self-defense, a counterterrorism campaign within the boundaries of the rules of war.
Yeah, let me try one more. Let me try one more on that as well, because I think this is important. Some of the most technically technically advanced weapon systems that we have, that we share with Israel, and that they use as well, and that some of which they've probably developed themselves, are the ones that can pinpoint where they want something to hit, exacting it. When you do that, you don't need as large of a weapon system as what we used to have to do. So rather than having a 500-pound bomb, sometimes you can do it with 25 pounds. And so the amount of collateral damage is significantly reduced when you use a more technologically advanced a product or weapon system. And so when we start talking about restricting, in some cases it can be really counterproductive to what a lot of people would like to see, which is less collateral damage. So rather than talking about restricting the technologies that we provide to the Israelis, who have the same thoughts that we do with regard to trying to minimize collateral damage where they hurt people that are innocent, that are being held in some cases as shields by Hamas, it's better if they can take a smaller weapon system and pinpoint it and take out their target without doing a lot of additional damage. So, and I can't tell you if there is an ongoing supply or if Israel is using their own, but I would most certainly hope that they would be using the most technologically advanced systems they could, just because it's more accurate.
Thank you. Orion Donovan-Smith with the Spokesman Review in Spokane. Congressman Crow, I want to ask you a question here. You alluded to the fact that you're the only House member, part of the delegation here. What did the recent uncertainty about passing a CR have to do with the composition of the delegation here, and what does the dynamics in the House say to U.S. allies and adversaries?
Yeah, thank you. I suspect this, me being the sole representative of the House, has a lot less to do with the current dynamics in the CR and a lot more to do with the fact that we just finished 10 consecutive weeks of session and people are tired and want to get home to their families. So that's what I attribute this primarily to. And, you know, look, we're here to send a very strong signal that we support a strong national defense, that we support Ukraine, we support our allies in NATO. We have a lot of challenges, and we're going through the process. I indicated earlier that, yes, our system can sometimes be messy, right? Churchill just once said democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. It can be messy, it can be complicated. We're seeing a lot of challenges, a lot of stresses that our country and frankly every other country in the world is experiencing to some degree. That represents itself through their elected representatives. And we're having those debates. And I don't shy away from that. None of us ever do. That's who we are. We have those debates in the open, and that creates strength and resiliency that, frankly, our adversaries lack. Right? Our adversaries don't have that resiliency because there's no mechanism for their people to express their views and to vent their frustrations and to work out very, very tough and challenging issues. So we're going through that now, and we'll continue to go through it, and I'm very proud of that.
I'm sure you've had, just as a quick follow-up, I'm sure you've had some of these conversations with representatives from other countries here, and I'm happy to hear from any of the senators on this too, but has that been, have they been reassured by the idea that our system is more resilient?
Yeah, they have been, because they also know this deeply too, right? They share our systems and our values and our beliefs, and they understand the process that we're going through. And by the way, yeah, we have challenges and we're facing challenges, but we have historically as well. You know, I draw a great solace from the fact that we have gone through many struggles before as a country, and we've come out of them stronger. We've come out of them having learned a lot of lessons, and we're going through another period like that now. You know, our friends know that, and they're going through it too. And I would also like to comment, you know, on the question earlier on Israel. I want Israel to be successful. Israel must be able to secure itself and defend itself and to defeat terrorism. And the United States has some experience with this. You know, we spent 20 years at war fighting terrorism. We spent $3.5 trillion. Over 6,000 American lives. I fought the war 3 times in Iraq and Afghanistan. trying to dismantle ISIS and al-Qaeda, and yet those organizations still exist. So there is absolutely a military component to this. And we will make sure that Israel has the capability to defend itself and to conduct the military operations that they need to conduct. But ultimately, this battle against terrorism they face will not be settled entirely on the battlefield. There will be a political, diplomatic, and humanitarian component to this that's going to be just as important. And centering humanitarian issues, which we all believe in, is going to be essential to the success or failure of the security of Israel.
Thank you.
Let me take a quick shot at that. Well, Ryan, that was a really good question, and I would say this, that most of the people that we're visiting here are parliamentarians, and they are familiar with the democratic process, which is not pretty. It's not smooth and easy, but it gives everybody a chance to get their 2 cents worth in, then we vote, and then we stand by it. So with all due respect, I've had a lot more consternation expressed to me by the media than I have by our allies here. And in answer to your question, they do understand this process and are significantly more patient than other people who attended this conference, present company accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a bit of additional time, so we'll accommodate everybody who's in line right now.
Stu Magnuson, National Defense Magazine. Switch the topic to AUKUS. Australia says it has $6.5 billion to invest in our U.S. defense industrial base. They're just waiting for you guys to move some legislation forward to pave the way. Can you talk a little bit about prospects for that, when that might happen?
Well, you can talk about the prospects. Listen, I think there's a lot of support for the AUKUS legislation. I can tell you from New Hampshire's perspective, we're very excited because we have the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard that we share with the state of Maine. And we see this as an opportunity for us to share the information that we have learned about our nuclear submarines, and we think this is a great opportunity for us. So I think the issue is less about the substance of that legislation, and it's more about working out some of the specific details and moving it through the process, given all the other challenges we have to get to on the floor.
Are there any details that are hanging it up? Or?
Yeah, I can answer that. First of all, thanks for asking the question on AUKUS. Most of your readers, viewers are not fully on board with what AUKUS is, but AUKUS is the most significant enterprise that we are undertaking for our security, our national security in the Indo-Pacific. It's a great alliance with some great allies, and we're doing our best to move it forward. I meet with Australians probably at least once a week as we try to smooth these things out. This is going to be a process by which we actually amalgamate the industrial base regarding submarines in Australia, in the United States, and Great Britain. Also, that is colored by the fact that a lot of these materials have to cross a bridge that is classified. And each of us have different rules as far as how we handle classified materials. We all agreed we would try to smooth that out as much as possible. We're very close. We're pretty much done as far as the Australians are concerned. Great Britain, we're still pushing and shoving a little bit, to put it kindly, but we are going to get through this. These are our friends, they're our closest allies. We'll get through this. Thanks for that question. It's a really important point.
You think, when?
What's that?
When you think you could get it passed?
Now, you guys always want to calendar. Come on now. I can't answer that, but I can tell you this. As Gene pointed out, while we are anxious to take that cash that the Australians are saying, hey, America, take this money, but we've got to get legislation passed first, and we'll get it done. And we all want to get done sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Tutton. I'm a reporter with the Canadian Press National News Service. I think it's a question probably for Senator Coons. We heard an interesting discussion this morning with Prime Minister Barak about the rules of war, and I think you have a little familiarity with that. What is your take on whether Israel has followed the rules of war so far, particularly in regard to the principle of proportionality?
When you're done, let me do that.
So Jim's eager to get into the mix and answer that. Look, I don't think it's an appropriate thing for me in public to do a quick back-of-the-envelope assessment about whether or not they've fully and correctly followed the rules of war with regards to proportionality. When our Secretary of State says too many Palestinian civilians have died, I think that's an expression on the part of the administration of concern about collateral damage, concern about the humanitarian cost. Our president has repeatedly and publicly called on the Israelis to be as targeted as they possibly can, and we've sent them folks with deep experience in conducting similar complex and difficult operations that are counterterrorism operations in an urban environment. I do think that we're communicating regularly with our close partner and ally Israel, both our support for their self-defense and our concern about the impact it's having on the broader support for Israel in the region and the world, and the impact on civilian life in Gaza. But at the end of the day, as you heard Ehud Barak, one of the most decorated Israeli soldiers in history, say they see this as an existential threat to the nation of Israel, that if they don't complete the task against Hamas, they don't have a future. So this is a conversation we're engaging in regularly, respectfully, but in a way that I think reflects the hard lessons that we've learned, as Congressman Crow said, from our 20 years of experience conducting similar operations.
Jim, did you think? No, let Peter, you want to take a run at this?
Well, you know, it's not the topic of the conference, but I heard here from others who are watching what's happening in Israel. Number one, enormous empathy and horror at what Hamas did in Israel. And Jim, yeah, I think you spoke about that quite eloquently. It's truly shocking. All of us also were in America 9/11, and we saw how we reacted to that horrible attack where so many firefighters, everyday folks going to work, were slaughtered by Osama bin Laden. So there's an immense amount of empathy for Israel and what this attack did. There's an immense amount of condemnation of Hamas that has as its operating principle killing Jews and wiping out Israel. And there's also being expressed a real concern that the enemy Hamas is one thing, the innocent Palestinian people is quite another. And I've heard a concern I share about a war plan where there are so many civilian casualties, and a concern about what's next after this happens. So you've got this very dire situation where much of Gaza City has been destroyed. 44% of the homes people can't even return to. Civilian infrastructure is gone. You've had about 1.5 million people displaced. This is not Hamas. And the irony here, of course, is that Hamas did something absolutely horrendous, intending to provoke a response that inflicted enormous suffering on the Palestinian people. So I'm expressing what I heard is a shared concern about what is happening in Gaza and what the implications are with respect to an ultimate outcome.
Thanks so much for holding this. Maggie Miller with Politico. I was wondering, actually, for Senator Rounds, we spoke on Thursday just prior to this event, and you said you thought that you wouldn't have a single meeting that did not involve AI. Can you talk about what your meetings have been like here, and also for others on the panel, if AI has been a subject of conversation? And if so, then on what specifically?
Yeah, look, artificial intelligence has been here for probably 50 years in different forms. But it has advanced substantially in the last few years because we've put together very large databases to train on. And we've also put together algorithms now that have gotten to the point where we are training computers to actually train themselves. And then finally, with the use of some of the new super chips, the ability to make yes and no decisions at a pace that we have never seen before in the history of mankind, you now have this combination of all of it coming together to create computer systems that can do analysis very, very quickly on very large databases. In doing that, we've added one more item into the mix, and that is the ability to connect different systems together. And so now you have supercomputers that are connected to other supercomputers in a cloud. And when you do that, you've created the opportunity for business people that create items such as ChatGPT and bring it to normal folks that on their computer system can now look at something and start asking questions, and they suddenly discover that there is a computer on the other end that, based upon the training it's had, can try to respond to and answer questions. That's what's bringing it to the forefront right now. But with regard to defensive capabilities, we've seen artificial intelligence employed in the battlefield or on the battlefield, within space, within our ability to follow radar systems, to connect radar systems and so forth for some time. The advancements now are going to continue to move at a faster and faster pace. Our challenge here is to make sure that those individuals that can actually compete or create new systems and make them faster, connect them quicker, that they want to do business with us and not with our adversaries, that we're able to share our capabilities with our adversaries faster than what our competitors can share with their allies. In the meantime, artificial intelligence can be used to defend us against their capabilities. If we stay ahead of, just as an example, the People's Republic of China, if we can stay ahead of them, then that means that they think twice about whether or not they could actually challenge us or take out our weapon systems. They're going to continue to try to move at a quicker pace than us. Our job is to keep away from them the appropriately trained databases, the algorithms, and most importantly, the chips that they need desperately to improve their computer systems. That's the short term. Long term, we want the brightest minds in the entire world to consider whether they want to work for a place like the People's Republic of China, or do they want to come to places like America and continue to develop and to reap the benefits of that development. So in all of the different meetings that we've had, there's been some element of artificial intelligence incorporated into it. Our challenge is to never get behind our adversaries, to make it more difficult for them, but at the same time to keep the confidence of the American people that what we're doing is right, we're protecting them, and that they'll see the benefit of artificial intelligence as well in an improved quality of life. That's the key item that will keep them in favor of continued development of this brand new tool.
Thank you. And this will be the last question.
Nick Schifrin, PBS NewsHour. Just a couple of quick follow-ups. Senator Rounds, you made a point about Israel using smaller bombs. The military, of course, has been talking to the Israeli military about this, and you said, I hope they're using the most technologically advanced weapons available. With all due respect, you're a member of the Armed Services Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee. I think you probably know whether Israel is using the most capable weapons available. So, are they?
Yeah, look, let me just share with you. There's a couple of items. First of all, sometimes you can use a very small weapon and take out an individual, a leader, and you can use a small weapon system. The challenge with Hamas is that they've had years of developing really, really deep tunnels and fortifications. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're talking about really deep tunnels and fortifications, you're using a technologically advanced tool that can actually get down to where they're at, but it can also do other damage as well, just because it's so powerful. Sometimes a technologically advanced tool that'll actually get the job done, unfortunately, will also cause additional damage as well. What we're hoping, and that what we believe they do, because they have the same sense of humanity that we have. They have Western values. They're not a terrorist state. That when they do use that, they have done their best to try to minimize the number of non-combatant injuries whenever possible. And look, if you were to ask me who would I trust more to try to save lives, would it be Hamas or would it be the Israelis? It's the Israelis.
And quick to Senator Coons, you talked about reporting. and it sounded like reporting was an active discussion with the administration. There are units within the IDF that state has looked into when it comes to the Leahy Amendment. Those have gone nowhere. And when we ask state and DoD officials whether there are judgments being made about how the weapons are being used, the answers are cryptic. So is the administration meeting its reporting requirements?
Well, Nick, I don't speak for the administration on that. I do think that there are statutory obligations that, as we move forward, will be discussed and reviewed. And so I don't have a firm current answer on that. But that is the sort of topic that, as was asked previously, is likely to be taken up in the coming months.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks for coming.
Got it.